Hello, and today we will be looking at this short video at section 3.2 in the IGCSE Marine Science syllabus. As always, these videos are made by me for my class and they're non-profit, but if you can use them for anything, you're more than welcome. And we will be looking at the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction in the marine ecosystems. So one of the big questions in reproduction is to do it with or without a partner. Asexual reproduction only requires one organism, an animal, plant, fungi, bacteria. So you don't need a partner. And there are certain advantages to that we'll get back to later. But the biggest advantage is you don't have to spend time looking for a partner. And if you are yourself already adapted to the environment, well, then all your offspring is going to be adapted to the environment as well. So like any traits you have that are very well suited to that environment will be in all your offspring, and that can be a huge advantage. We see asexual reproduction many places, and we see different kinds from budding to we see in corals from fragmentation to talk about later in more advanced animals, where we actually see the animal giving birth or laying eggs the same way as it would do in a sexual reproduction, but only with a mother and not with a father. So often when we look at asexual reproduction, we often think about it only as happening in like primitive animals, like jellyfish, small invertebrates, but we also see it in larger invertebrates and even in vertebrates. And here are three examples. Both in the zebra shark and in the black tip shark, they can do both asexual and sexual reproduction. So if there are no males around, eventually the female can then fertilize her own eggs and thereby make offspring. In quite many species of crayfish, they're also able to do both asexual and sexual reproduction, so they can switch between the different strategies depending on how the environment is. So sexual reproduction is quite normal both in the animal kingdom, in the plants, in the protista, in the fungi, and organisms here produce both a male sex cell, usually called a sperm, and a female sex cell called an egg. Both of them contain half the genetic material needed to make a new offspring, so when they join together, they together have the full genetic makeup to have a viable offspring. Now, the main advantage to sexual reproduction is that you get variance, that you get some new genetic material into your makeup. And that can be a disadvantage, but it also be a huge advantage, especially if you are in a changing environment. So then being able to change and to evolve faster can mean a lot about survival for a population. So there are many ways of doing this, and we're not going to go into the grim details of it, just that it is something that organisms will deal with in many different ways, but we are going to look at two different ways in marine organisms that are quite important to know about. So here we look at the difference between internal and external fertilization. What we see in the fish here is external fertilization. At a certain time, all the females lay their eggs, and then the males will swim above and release the seed, and then there'll be fertilization. It is a bit more random, and afterwards there's not a great deal of care for the eggs. The fertilized eggs just swim away by the current, and some of them survive and become live fish later. Internal fertilization is what we see in the dolphins, that the embryo will start developing inside the female. There's also way more choice here between the male and the female. It's often female choice. And then when ready, the female will either then, as we see in some fish, lay an egg, or as we see in marine animals, mammals, she will give birth to a live offspring. So each of them has its own advantage. The external fertilization is quick, it's fast, you get a lot of eggs out, and after that the female don't have to spend a whole lot of energy. The internal fertilization, as we see marine mammals, take up more energy, you get fewer offspring, but on the other hand there's a bigger chance that your offspring will survive. If we compare asexual and sexual reproduction, we can see the different advantages and disadvantages here. Asexual is faster, where sexual can be slow. In asexual, you don't have to spend time finding a partner, you do that in sexual reproduction. In general, there's less energy use in asexual than in sexual reproduction. And if you're well adapted in asexual reproduction, all your offspring will be adapted too. You have no guarantee for that in sexual reproduction. On the other hand, change in genetic makeup is way slower in asexual than it is in sexual reproduction, and for asexual reproduction it's hard to adapt to a changing environment, which is way easier for organisms in sexual reproduction.